Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 40 of the Hardly Millennial podcast, where we are young, dumb, and full of
opinions 40 times over.
40 times over opinions, ladies and gentlemen.
We got to 40, dude.
We got to 40, man.
That's crazy.
I'm super excited for 100, though. That's the one I'm like...
100's a bit... Well, let's hit 50 first.
Let's hit 50 first, but I'm really excited for 100.
Yeah, wow.
So,
what's up, guys?
So I'm Adam Hansen.
Matthew Lynn, what's up?
And today we're going to try to be current. We're gonna.
Oh, are we?
Yeah. So I
came into this totally blind today, guys. I have zero clue what we're gonna talk about.
So usually what we do, just so you guys understand a little bit of our process with the podcast, when we're trying to think of a subject, the first thing that we'll do is we'll go through like what happened in the news, right? And we'll see if there's anything exciting that happened in the news. And usually there's not, at least nothing worth having an hour conversation about, right? So, but today I literally have the page of news up. It's divided through politics, entertainment, science. And we're just going to actually kind of go through and see what's happening in the world and just kind of talk about it.
We're just going to talk about the world?
Yeah, just going to talk about the world. See what happens.
I'm super on board for that.
Yeah.
I can do that.
So,
I was worried. I was like, man, how intellectual am I going to have to be?
Okay. I know. We'll see what happens.
What's happening in the world, Adam?
So, just to touch on politics, Trump did like 20 things to piss people off, and people wrote like 20 different articles about it. So that's old news, though. That's news every day.
That pretty much sums up politics right there.
Sums up
Perfect.
politics
well,
right
we had
there.
the politics conversation. What's next?
So we have technology is next.
Ooh.
So there's a couple things here. Let's see. Uber Freight is expanding into Europe.
Uber Freight?
Whatever the fuck that is.
What does that mean? You can like hire an Uber to do freight for you?
I don't know. Maybe. Uber Freight, the newly I'm reading the article, by the way. Uber Freight, the newly spun out Uber business unit that helps truck drivers connect with shipping companies, is kicking off its global expansion plans. Local carriers and drivers will be able to book and move their first loads with Uber Freight in the next few weeks. Wrote in a blog post, blah, blah. Uber Freight plans to expand to more European countries this year. So what?
So that's awesome. So basically, what I'm understanding there is if you're a truck driver, right, you don't get paid unless you're driving.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's not always stuff to be moved. So there's always things that need to be moved, but you don't always have access to those things. So it's not like you always work for one company and you just move stuff for that one company.
Right.
You can.
So that's what I was going to ask. So this is referring to just like truck drivers who are like independent contractors who just have the truck.
Yeah, if they don't have a contract to do, they can go on this Uber, and there's people who need things moved and need a truck, and you can go and do that if it's close to you.
Oh,
that's fucking genius.
That is actually really genius.
Well, that's not new though. They're already doing that.
Right.
What's new is they're bringing it to Europe.
I had no idea they were even doing it here though. This is the first I've ever heard about.
First I've ever heard too, but I'm not into trucking.
Right.
I think that trucking is like a bigger deal in Europe than it is here. It's a big deal here, but I think trucking is like really a big deal in Europe.
Really? Why?
I think so. I don't know. I think things are just so close together there that it's easier to move stuff with a truck. You know what I mean?
And I guess whereas here you can move cross country with a truck, in Europe you can literally drive through like 4 different countries.
Yeah. I mean, everything's pretty close. It's smaller than the U.S., and there's like 30 different countries in it.
That's true.
So I think trucking is really big there.
Interesting. So that's interesting. So it's like you'll have a trucker in Spain and somebody in, Germany will want, they'll be able to be like, oh, I'll drive something over there.
If it's that small.
You think it's just in country?
I get what you're saying. Maybe like Netherlands, Belgium kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
A smaller scale. But yeah, that is really cool.
Well, we'll see how long it lasts until all trucks are just automated vehicles anyway, because we're still trying to do that.
Do you think Lyft will ever get to the point Uber's at?
So I was actually thinking about that. I was like, because I personally, without doing any research into either of those companies, I've always put them on kind of the same level with each other. You just either you use Uber or you use Lyft.
I think like capital wise, like financially,
right?
I think Lyft is like a fraction of the size of.
Well, I think you're correct because Uber's
Uber.
been around way
I think it's like a
than
fifth
Lyft.
of the size.
Yeah.
Like, big difference. I also think that Uber has been publicly traded much longer. I think Lyft just became publicly traded.
I wonder why. I wonder why, out of all these different services, these self-driving services that you can send, these self-employment services, I wonder why Lyft was the one that, like, I would think that Uber, it would just be Uber, right? Like, Uber's the one that exists, like, nobody can compete because it's new, it's original. And then Lyft came along, and Lyft, I feel like, even if they make a fraction of the profit that Uber
they're
does,
still very successful.
there's still, when you think of driving services, you either think of Uber and Lyft.
Well, that's capitalism, baby.
So I'm just curious, like,
competition.
I'm just curious, like, what Lyft really does that differently to put it on the same kind of standard as Uber.
I'm sure that there's a lot of laws and regulations that help Lyft out because you're not really allowed to be a monopoly. It's kind of frowned upon.
Right.
So there's probably a lot of regulations that stunt Uber and kind of help Lyft to get it to the point that it's at. Because we try to stimulate competition, so they say.
Yeah,
We're supposedly into that.
supposedly. Yeah, tell that to Alphabet.
Well, they compete against Microsoft and Apple.
Well, I guess that's true. Facebook announces $400 Oculus Rift S to launch in spring.
Okay, so the Oculus thing, interesting you bring that up because me and Adam are very fascinated in virtual reality compared to augmented reality.
Right.
So this Oculus, that's virtual, right?
Yeah, that's virtual reality.
So the difference being, for any of our older viewers, I know some of the parents listen to this, virtual reality is you put on a device and you are then a character within a different world, a virtual world.
Yes.
So you can run around. It's pretty limitless, honestly.
Yes.
But as long as you can write the programs and keep them at blah, 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 then you can run around in a virtual world.
Yes.
The difference with augmented reality is augmented, you put a device over your face. Right now, it's how they do it. And you bring the reality into your own world.
Yeah.
So you bring
virtual
virtual
world.
objects, virtual devices into the real life. For instance, you can make a piano appear in front of you on stage, and you can play the keys on the piano.
Yes.
And again, the possibilities are pretty limitless.
Yeah. Well, and I remember I showed you a video, I think a couple of weeks ago at this
It
point.
is incredible. So I was a huge believer in virtual reality. I said that augmented was going to take too long and that virtual was going to be a step along the way to augmented. And Adam has always said, knowing more than I do, that virtual reality, the information is moving too fast. Like it's growing too fast. So we're going to skip right over virtual reality and just move right to augmented.
Yeah.
And I was like, bullshit. Well, he showed me a video, guys, of the forefront of augmented reality right now. The people who are like literally creating it day by day. And it is literally phenomenal.
It is, isn't it, dude?
It is like nothing I have ever seen or experienced before in my life.
It's literally something out of a sci-fi movie.
They can just make things appear on the stage around them, and they can manipulate the things and move them as if they have no weight to them at all. But the things and the objects they're using function exactly like the real life objects do.
Yeah.
They can make buttons appear in front of them, and like right now, it's very, very infant right now, early on. So they're working on buttons and different styles of how to push a button.
Yeah, they were seeing like what people prefer, like in the button example, you know, she had a panel of buttons and the whole point was to try to see what people preferred more. So they were like, oh, well, here's a big button to push with your hand. Here's a small button to push with your finger.
Exactly.
And they were finding out interesting things about people of like, oh, if you see a big button, you're always going to want to use your hand to do it, not a finger. It's really cool stuff. But what's really cool about augmented reality that VR isn't even there yet is, And I'm sure there are isolated cases where you can do this with some VR games, but it's just as you said, in a virtual reality, you immerse yourself into that virtual world.
Yeah,
correct?
the world around you is virtual.
But you can't really, like, I can't be in the virtual world and then put you in the same virtual world with me and be able to see you through
Multiplayer virtual
reality?
reality?
Multiplayer virtual.
I don't think that the processing is there yet.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure there's isolated incidences, but I haven't seen it yet. But what's cool about augmented reality that you saw is in order for them to showcase what was happening, because obviously it's just these glasses that you put on.
You have to have glasses on to do augmented. Your naked eye cannot see it.
But what's cool though is anybody else who has those augmented reality glasses on can see whatever you're seeing through your own augmented reality.
Yes.
So if you have a screen open in front of you and I'm 20 feet away with glasses on and I look up at you, I can see you interacting with your augmented reality as if it were there in my own.
Correct.
So it's
that's why they call it reality. That's the reality part. Is we can all experience the same thing at the same time.
right, but that's what I think is amazing about it.
So you're
it's
literally
not just
pulling the virtual into our actual existence. Because
Whereas
you can't
everybody
see it
can
with your
interact.
naked eye, but there's things like infrared that you can't see with your naked eye.
Right.
But it's still all around us all the time. It actually exists in reality. It's
Yeah.
a thing. So if you need glasses to see this augmented piano on the stage, well, the fact that we can all put glasses on and see it makes it just like infrared. We can
Yeah.
all put goggles on and see infrared. So it literally does exist at that point. There is
Yeah.
a piano on the stage, even though there's nothing there. We've made something exist.
and it's
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
fucking
It really
nuts.
is. I mean, the only way I can see this going in the future too is getting to a point where like they're able to create contacts in some way, shape, or form that's able to mimic, this or create this augmented
Bionics,
reality.
bro.
Yeah.
You start augmenting your body. You start using bionics. They're going to incorporate machinery and technology into our biological body.
That'll definitely be the first step. And then it's going to be this question of like, well, how right is it to always experience
fuck
the
yeah, dude.
augmented
It's gonna-
when there's a real world around you? And you're going to have quote unquote virtual hipsters who
But
I don't wear
exactly.
glasses,
There's already that philosophy that goes on of what is reality.
Yeah.
I can see orange and you can see red, and which
Right.
one of us is right?
Yeah.
We're both right. That's the existence that each of us live in. You know what I mean? You really do see red. I truly do see blue.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're both right. So you live in your own reality. You create your own reality.
It's funny you brought that up because that is a thought that ever since I was younger has always just like boggled my mind.
I think it boggles like all humans.
Yeah,
dude.
well, it's just like where if everybody sees, separate colors than everybody else, just as you said, my red is your blue. And
That would be crazy because then we all see the same thing. But what I think of red, that hot, deep red color,
Right.
maybe someone else says the word red, but they're seeing what I interpret as green.
And
My green is their red.
Yeah,
But we both call it
exactly.
red.
So then I've always even gone further with that, and I was like, so what if what if everybody has the same favorite color, but if we just all see it differently? So
What if actual reality is just gray?
yeah.
And all we're seeing is light bounce off gray objects in different ways, and we're interpreting that light into colors.
There was a scientist slash YouTuber who was looking into that and was just talking about like, he was talking about animals specifically, and he was going, he was showing a picture of the Milky Way, right? And he goes, if you're a cat, you see the Milky Way like this.
Isn't
If
it
you're a dog,
crazy?
you see the Milky Way like this. And he was asking.
We would all call it the Milky Way if we all spoke English.
Right, exactly. But he was talking about it in regards to just that of like so what's real? What's the real color of everything? What's
they
the
are
real
all real. Yes.
Exactly.
It's an interpretation of the objects around you.
Oh, it's mind-boggling stuff, dude. It just
Dude, I was sitting there last night and I was thinking again to the podcast where we talked about the individual who was born without sight or hearing or speech.
Oh yeah.
They just simply didn't have any three of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking in my head how they would think. Like, would their thoughts just be blank? Because there's no concept of English or
Right.
words. They've never heard a word.
Right.
So they can't, you know how we all have a voice in our head and we can talk in our head?
Uh-huh.
Well, I was talking in my head last night and thinking there's a human who's lived a whole life and is gone now, and they never talked in their head because talk wasn't a concept to them. They never experienced talk. So
Damn.
that voice in their head was they still had that capacity, but they never used it because they didn't even know that they could use it.
Right.
I don't even think they would speak gibberish in their head. There would just be silence. You've never heard a noise.
I feel like there would have to be.
I got down
that's
to,
a tough
dude, I
one.
sat there for a while and I thought about it. And I thought about the only thing that you would actually be able to register and pick up from the outside world is shapes. Because you could feel. You can still feel and you can still taste. Those are the two things you're able to do. So you would constantly be thinking about tastes, and you would constantly be thinking about textures, and you would put those tastes and textures, associate them with shapes. I think that you would be able to build anything you can think of out of shapes in your head. So while they've never seen a house or know the concept of a house, they would be able to invent a house in their head. And to them, it would be their invention.
So I agree with you. So I think shapes is the best way that they would probably be
That's
able
all
to
they
do
would have,
it.
dude.
But at the same time, though, as somebody who hasn't been able to see, what would you say? Can't see, can't hear,
Can't see, can't hear, can't talk.
can't talk. So I feel like at that point, it's they would think in shapes, but because they've never been able to see or hear anything, they wouldn't even be able to, like, I don't know, like, how could you even create a shape in your head? You know what I mean? Like,
I think
could
so.
could you be able to, like, make a lot, like, put four lines together and make a square in your head?
I think so. I think you could understand the concept of a line because you would still register. Your brain has the capacity to register all the information.
Right.
You know, so you're going to want to try to fill in blanks the same way me and you do. You know what I mean? It's still a brain.
Right.
So it wants to gather as much detail as it can. So you're going to spend all your 18 hours a day while you're awake touching everything around you, trying to pick up information. So you're going to you'll feel points, you'll feel edges, and you would be able to feel a triangle, see what that feels like, put the lines together in your head, and now you always remember a triangle. You can always use that shape again. You can go back to it. So I think through practice, you would just inevitably, through 18 hours a day, every day for tens and tens of years, you would put circles and triangles and squares and shapes together in your head in different ways and come across concepts that are very elementary to us.
Right.
But you would have to, like, invent every single thing or discover it in your own head. It's pretty crazy, dude.
I'm very happy I can see and hear and talk.
Well, I don't think without modern medicine you could survive. But
nah, well,
anyway, side note that I was thinking about last night.
Well, and just one last thing on that, with how much we cater to the weak, you know, in this world, which not saying we should or shouldn't. I'm just saying
we help the needy.
The need
is a nicer way to say that.
When we help the needy, I'm sure they would be able to find help in this world and be able to get.
Oh yeah, today they'd be fine.
Justin actually told me once about somebody who was in his fraternity who couldn't see or hear.
Oh.
And he had some implant that was put into his temple that it didn't bring back his sight, but it could help him see, like, contrast.
Oh, interesting.
So, like, Justin was telling me that he would be able to text, but he had to hold the phone, like, super fucking close to his eyes to, like, make out the letters and everything in it. But couldn't hear, couldn't see. The only thing he could do was, like, he could make out little, like, fuzzy shapes because of this implant he had.
Huh.
So we are getting there. Well, and actually we're getting there more. Have you seen the videos where the deaf people hear for the first time?
No, but I imagine there's a lot of crying.
So there's a lot of crying, yes. So there's these implants now that they can put into your ears, and it's relatively new, But there's tons of videos out there of people your and I's age who have been deaf their entire life, never been able to hear not even a speck of noise. And they put these implants in, and then they turn up the volume a little bit, and all of a sudden their loved ones are talking to them and they can hear them.
Oh shit.
And yeah, so we're
That'd
literally
be crazy. That just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
That would be nuts.
We're
dude.
literally getting to
I'm so happy for those people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know them, and when you said that, I just got like happiness for those people.
It's one of
that's
those.
amazing. They should all get that opportunity.
Yeah, it's one of those video compilations you watch and you're just like, I'm not gonna cry, man. I'm not gonna cry.
Like, that's so cool. Something we take for
cool.
granted that they just appreciate so much.
Yeah, it's really cool when you see like when they'll put like the implants in little kids too, who are like toddler age, you know, and they'll be crying and everything at first. They're in a white doctor's office with a bunch of people around and shit. But then like once they turn up the volume in here, they'll like be crying. They'll go, ah. And then they'll just go silent.
Like,
and
oh
you
shit, that
just
was
see
me.
their heads like a fucking bird.
Because it's all that information
all of a
coming
sudden,
in, dude,
yeah, all
and
of a
your
sudden
brain
it's
wants
just
to
all of
collect
this.
all of it.
And then they start crying again. It's the coolest thing to watch, or more intriguing thing to watch, I should say. But yeah, dude, stuff like that's crazy. Let's see what else is happening.
What else is happening? We had something to say about that.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the original article was, but you know.
I think, where do we leave out the virtual reality thing?
Yeah.
Something about Apple's AirPods that I don't give a fuck about.
Apple's pretty beast, dude.
Yeah, well, they have those AirPods right now that are super pop. I think you've seen them. They look like half of a headphone. It's like headphones without the wires. So they're these little white headphones that just hang out of your ears like this, but there's no wires or anything. But it's all Bluetooth, so you can talk to people through it and stuff. But I always look at them and I'm just like,
that sounds cool.
I mean, tons of people use them, but I'm just always like, I feel like they're going to just fall out of your ears easier, but whatever. What do I know? I use Android. Facebook agrees to advertising overhaul to settle U.S. discrimination suits. Okay, so I did read a little bit about this. So this
Facebook is discriminating on people?
So this goes back into politics a little bit.
Cool.
It was just one little thing I read about in one of the articles where Trump, I guess, is threatening to do an investigation into Facebook because of them discriminating against conservative like pages or views or users.
Right.
So I didn't read into the article, but basically he's like, you can't fucking do that because it's a way to sway an election or some shit like that. But so now Facebook agrees to advertising overhaul to settle U.S. discrimination suits, which tells...
So they're going to change their advertising.
Yeah, but which tells me that Facebook was very aware that they're fucking up. So before any lawsuit could even happen, they're like, okay, we're going to fucking do an overhaul. Don't worry, we'll fix it for you.
Facebook is scandalous as fuck, dude.
They are scandalous. All the social media ones are scandalous as fuck. Honestly, the one you hear the least about is Instagram.
The gram? Because the gram is just a nice, peaceful place to take cool pictures.
It's a nice, peaceful place to take cool pictures. But
Everyone
yeah,
loves
so
the gram.
the Facebook and Twitter thing is something we're gonna have to make sure we follow because I'm really curious what's gonna happen with all this social media and internet business because of all that shit. But
I don't know. Zuckerberg keeps getting away with it, dude. He's like a ninja.
Meanwhile, Instagram adds new feature to let U.S. users shop direct via app.
Oh, cool.
So that's what Instagram.
People are going to start monetizing off Instagram. That's good. Good capitalism at its finest.
Good
folks.
capitalism at its finest. All right, let's. That was pretty much all in tech. What's in entertainment? Hollywood Power.
Hardly Millennials get to episode 40 of their podcast.
Oh, right
That's
there.
actually
Top,
on CNN,
the
guys.
top
Jeez.
news. It's on
What
all
the
of
hell?
them.
Better look us up.
Better look us up, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Hollywood Power Elite hosting Kamala Harris fundraiser. Okay, that's okay. Daniel Caesar claims black people are too sensitive.
Ooh, that's okay. Let's just go to the next one.
Daniel Caesar is a black person, by the way.
Oh,
so
is it Caesar or Cesar?
Caesar.
So speaking of entertainment, okay,
What's up?
The new. Oh, what's his face?
Quentin Tarantino?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
New Quentin Tarantino movie, number 9. Coming out. It's
9.
not called that. It just happens to be the 9th rendition of Tarantino Entertainment. Mm-hmm. Quentin made a new movie, guys. So it's called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yes.
It's got my man, the love of my life, Leonardo DiCaprio. And it's got another, hunk of man called Brad Pitt, I believe his name is. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Brad Pitt is in it as well. Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, directed by Quentin Tarantino.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be amazing. I'm very excited for it. So we watched a trailer this morning, Adam and I.
Yeah.
We heard about the movie originally.
Yeah, they released
on
a
Facebook
poster
yesterday.
for it, yeah.
And we knew nothing about it. And we decided that we were going to go see it. Just because of the people in it, which is a whole conversation that we had as well. Because we were disgusted with ourselves that we were so excited about a movie we knew nothing about. We were disgusted. Anyway, today the trailer came out for it, and we watched it, and it actually looks really interesting, guys. It kind of looks like the early days of Hollywood.
Look like the 60s, definitely.
Not necessarily the early days of film, but kind of when it became real, like... big, real monetized.
Yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, I'm not too familiar with how Hollywood was conducting themselves in the 60s. I can't even really think of any movies off the top of my head that came out in the 60s that I'm personally like really into. But I think it's just, I think it's, knowing Tarantino, it's probably going to be this mixture of like Hollywood, but also what's happening in the real life at that point, right? So you had the Vietnam War, you had Nixon with Watergate and everything. There was the hippie movement.
Right.
So I'm sure they're just going to find a way to kind of mush all of that together.
And it's going to have to be kind of weird and kind of dark because it's
Tarantino. It's probably going to be one big violent scene too.
At least.
But they're very.
Someone's going to lose some limbs or something. It's got to. Now, in the trailer, it didn't look like any intense violence was going on. It looked very much like a lot of partying was going on.
Yeah, so just from what we got from the trailer, for those who haven't seen it yet, it looks like it's about DiCaprio, who's a famous actor in Hollywood in the 60s at this point. And then Brad Pitt, who's his stunt double.
Yes.
And then Margot Robbie's in there, who I'm sure is going to be the love interest. You know who Margot Robbie is. She was in Wolf of Wall Street. She was the blonde woman, the Leonardo DiCaprio's wife.
Naomi? The hot one?
Yeah, was that her name, Naomi? Yeah.
The super hot blonde.
Yeah, that's Margot Robbie. So she's
that's
in
her?
it too. Yeah.
I thought it was the girl who was in, who was Ron Burgundy's girlfriend.
No, that's Christina Applegate.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, is that literally her name?
Yeah, Christina Applegate.
Doesn't she use that name in the movie too?
I don't think so. Does she?
I think she does.
I think they might do like a play on her name.
Okay.
But I don't think
it's not exactly the
Applegate,
same though.
Yeah.
I thought it was that girl who was in the new movie coming out.
Did you ever see or watch the show Married with Children?
I know of it, but I didn't really watch it.
Oh, well, Christina Applegate, she was the blonde daughter in that show. That's where she comes from.
So this one is the super hot blonde from Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
Cool.
Same one who played Harley Quinn also in the Suicide Squad movie and all that shit.
Oh, cool. Yeah, love her. She's great.
But yeah, no, I'm very excited for that movie. I also saw a trailer for Toy Story 4. They're doing a Toy Story 4 movie.
I thought they said it was done.
No.
I thought that the last Toy Story was the last one.
No, like a couple of years ago, they announced they were going to do a fourth one, and they just released the trailer for it like yesterday or the day before.
Well, really?
To be honest, it looks good.
Well, of course it looks good. It's Toy Story. But, I mean, are we okay with this? Are we just going to let it keep happening?
So, from what I gathered from watching the trailer as like what the story is about, I think I'm okay with there being a fourth Toy Story, but I don't think I would be okay with them going beyond the fourth Toy Story.
4 is the last one. It's the final straw.
I think it should be, because what I gathered from the trailer is that the fourth Toy Story movie is kind of about Woody kind of passing on his knowledge from being Andy's toy all these years and like passing that down to toys who like necessarily don't want to be anybody's toy. Like there's one specific Lee in there that's like the what's the word I'm looking for? The focus on the film. So like from that kind of standpoint, it's like, all right, so you're just kind of we're kind of getting an epilogue, right, to the Toy Stories franchise. Okay, cool, I'm fine with that. But if they went past it beyond the fourth one, I don't think I'd be okay with that. But I don't think they would, because Tom Hanks and Tim Allen both said that this was the last movie they were doing. They said they would not come back for another one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who would have thought Toy Story would keep going longer than The Lion King?
Yeah. Well, what's crazy about Toy Story is I still remember.
Well, I mean, in their defense, though, sorry to cut you off, we don't have a live action Toy Story yet, and we are getting a live action Lion King.
We are getting a live action Toy Story would. I don't know how they would do
It'd be a little
that.
creepy, wouldn't it?
That would be a little
Wouldn't it
creepy.
be a little weird.
Like the only way I could see them doing it is like, did you ever see the movie Night at the Museum with Ben Stiller?
Yeah.
It's like doing it like that where you had the little miniature figures and then they were quote unquote real people, you know, played by real actors. But like in Toy Story, though, there are moments when, you know, this kid is like running around with carrying this toy. Yeah. It's like, what, you're going to have like an Owen Wilson lookalike, you know, fucking like flailing his arms in this kid's hands? I don't know.
It would be interesting. It'd be hard to do, for sure.
I hope they don't. Honestly, I'm sick of going on with these franchises as much as we are. I get it to an extent, but at the same time, it's like, just come up, start a new franchise. Come up with an original idea, have the first movie, and then do 3 movies of that.
And we get like Moana and fucking the ice one. What's the ice princess? I know everyone loves it.
But
it's great. It's great. It's just not what I grew up with.
I feel ya. But I don't know, with those kind of movies, it's like with Disney movies, it's hard too, because it's like I have a hard time saying like, oh, those are original ideas, because we already know Disney just takes algorithm that works.
Well, yeah,
and basically just, you know, plugs and plays
they're
them.
Genius.
But I forgot my point. But I'm just tired. I'm just tired of lack of originality in Hollywood. That's why I like.
That was it.
Like,
yeah, you found your point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why I really like Quentin Tarantino, because all of his films are original.
I am very excited for this latest film that's going to be coming out.
Me too, man. Because this is his 9th film, I'm actually really excited for his 10th film, because I feel like he's going to go like above and beyond for the big 1-0. You know what I mean? Whenever his 10th film comes out later in life.
That seems like a lot of films for a human to get through in their lifetime. 10?
Oh, that's like nothing.
Really?
Yeah, I think Spielberg has like 30.
Oh.
I think films.
Oy, oy.
There's Tim Burton, I think, has more than Tarantino also. 9's actually really small. Huh. I think Christopher Nolan actually is above Tarantino.
Well, I feel like if it
takes
takes like
later.
2 or 3 years to make a movie and you do it 10 times, that's like 30 years.
Well, it depends. So people like Tarantino, I think, are people who really delve into the art of, you know, we were just talking about this earlier, you know, they're a true artist when it comes to filmmaking. Right. So similar to the other director I was telling you about, Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson's another one who I think he's only done like 8 to 10 films in his life. But these are directors who I feel like they finish up a film and then they go, okay, I'm gonna work on the next one. And if it takes them 4 years to develop that story in that film, then it takes them 4 years. But that's why you always get hits with them every time they're released.
Right.
Baz Luhrmann is another example. He's one of my favorite directors. He did Moulin Rouge, Ballroom Dancing, Great Gatsby. And he does, I think has only released like 5 films, but he releases one film like once every 6 years, but they're always these grandiose, just fantastic, polished films.
So does Steven Spielberg and directors like that, do they work on like multiple films at one time?
So typically directors won't work on multiple films at one time, at least not in the sense of they'll both be filming at the same time. Maybe one will be in pre-production while the other one's actually shooting.
Right.
Spielberg, though, although I would call him an artist in his own right, he's somebody who's hired on to do movies. He's just the best one out there to hire on to do movies. Right. So people like Tarantino, they write their own shit. They're usually the top producer on their own shit.
Oh, okay.
Whereas like Spielberg is somebody where like Warner Brothers will be like, who do we want to get to direct this film? Oh, let's see if we can get Spielberg.
Let's call Steven.
Yeah.
He'll do it.
So Steven Spielberg doesn't write any of his films. He's just solely the director brought on to direct it. He's just the best at it.
I see. Mm-hmm. So would you say that most directors are more like a like a Tarantino.
No, most are like Spielberg.
Most are like Spielberg. They're just good at the art of directing.
Most of the ones that are like making a living doing it, I'll rephrase.
Right. They're more of just contractors that get hired on for the project.
Yeah, and that happens to like big name directors also. I mean, I think Tim Burton is a perfect example of that, where he has some of his kind of passion projects. Like Beetlejuice is a perfect example of that. Of like,
didn't he do the Christmas Nightmare one?
Oh, Nightmare. So this is actually funny. That's actually a great misconception. He had nothing to do with directing that film.
With the what's
Nightmare Before Christmas?
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Did
that
not
movie
direct
was
it.
hugely famous.
Did not direct it though.
Really? It
is
sure
not
seems
him.
like he did.
It was directed by Henry Selick.
Totally seems like it was Tim Burton.
It was based off of a short story that Tim Burton wrote, and it was based off of his art. But he had nothing to do with
I bet he wishes he did. That movie did great. It was like a cult following when I was a kid.
100.
Dude.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Huge.
And it's funny. It's always one of those misconceptions because everybody's like, "Oh, it's my favorite Tim Burton film." It's like, you didn't direct it.
No, it's not. That is funny. I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Henry Selick, the man who did direct that film, he's actually he's probably the most infamous director for doing stop animation. So he also did the movie Coraline. I don't know if you've heard of that movie before.
No.
He did a movie called, I think it was called like Kubo and the Legend of the Two Strings or something. But they're all stop animation films, but they're very grandiose, so complicated, in depth. Like stop animation films. I always enjoyed them. Just honestly, just from the art aspect of it, the fact that somebody was moving these little pieces, one by one frame a second, to create this entire fucking movie.
I know that's how they do it.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was just computer animated.
No. They they create models, and then there's literally teams of people that will go in there and move them just slightly, then film, then move them again slightly.
Oh
and
my
film.
gosh, that's so tedious.
Very tedious, but this guy makes feature-length films like it.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
And they're always well received, and because he always tries to do it, like sometimes he'll put some like computer animation stuff in there to like, link some stuff together and things like that. But for the most part, he's always been big about always making it as practical and real as possible. So Coraline, there's a part where the little girl goes out into this backyard, and it's like a dead backyard, and then it all starts coming to life. So these flowers start blooming everywhere and things like that. Right. But it's all stop animation. And they showed the behind the scenes on it, and they literally created this rig where like they filmed separately, where they just pressed a button and basically all these flowers came out at once. And then they did the stop animation with the little figurine girl, and then that's when they used computer to like take that and put her into the scene. But it's all still stop animation.
That's insane,
yeah,
dude. That would take so long.
It always does.
That's super cool, though.
He's another one film like every 5 years.
Yeah, because they take forever, but they're passion projects.
Oh, absolutely. And what's cool about his films is a lot of the times the film itself doesn't even have to be good, but he's just the leading expert of stop animation, that it's like you always go to see them. You always go to see them. You enjoy them. You take them for what they are. Because it's just the like, holy shit, what's he going to do this time with stop animation? How far is he going to be able to go this time? It's pretty wild stuff.
That's wild. That's a lot of pressure on yourself as a creator, though. To always have to one up like that. That's because at a certain point, I mean, you're just not going to be able to one up it. At a certain point, you're going to put out the best thing that you can do. You know what I mean? And then people are going to want a next step. And I think at least for most people, there's a point where you can't give them the next step, and it's kind of crushing.
Well, I think that happens to directors and filmmakers just in general who don't take their time on what they're trying to do. Yeah. So you have the directors out there. Michael Bay is a perfect example. Michael Bay does all the action movies, all the Transformer films. Michael Bay. So, but he's like the action aficionado, in Hollywood.
They shot one of the Transformers where I'm from.
Oh yeah, in Tucson, right?
Yeah, in Tucson.
And they so they created this. So he's somebody where like he'll usually just like pump out films, right? Especially the Transformer movies, when that franchise was a big deal. Like every year there was a new Transformer movie.
Those movies did great. They were all awesome.
I
liked them.
Well, but some of them were not as well received as other ones. Some of his movies are not as well received as other ones. And that's an example of somebody who just pumps out films, really quick. And sometimes you get gems and sometimes you don't. I would actually argue that with Spielberg, too.
Yeah.
I've definitely been some Spielberg films where I'm just like,
yeah, but his name's on everything.
Yeah.
Even if you know nothing about media, you know Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, exactly. So, whereas if you get the directors who take their time or the filmmakers that take their time with these projects and making sure all of their ducks in a row before going on and making the film, I think you're more likely going to get a film that's more well received, because at this point, people aren't even going at this point to see like a good film. But if you tell somebody I spent the last 10 years trying to make this film great, people want to see what that 10 years is going to do. So
with
even
a lot of expectations.
Exactly. But even if so what that causes though is usually if you're spending 10 years making sure a film is perfect before you do it, it's very rare that film is going to be poorly received. Because one, if you've spent that much time on it,
it's probably really fucking good.
You probably have something good on you. And two, a lot of the times people just want to just appreciate, wow, this is what 10 years got us. Avatar was that for James Cameron.
I think the only issue with doing something like that is that in the amount of time that takes, in those 10 years or even 5 years, the technology just moves on so quick around you that you could only almost do that with a piece of art. Something that could still be appreciated once it's not the forefront of technology.
Right.
I don't think you could develop a video game for 10 years because by the time that game went out, the technology would be so far beyond it that it wouldn't be received the way it would have in its heyday.
That's true.
But with art, and I would say that a lot of movies are art. You can almost get away with that more. Because like you can make a movie now that's shot on the 35 millimeter on the old school film, and it could still be well received nowadays because it's art. Some people really appreciate that genre. So yes, I think that in the case of art, you can have those passion projects. But there are definitely most industries, I think, you do have that crunch time where you could have an amazing video game come out, the best one ever, but because technology moves so fast, that doesn't happen. They're almost forced to just pump out what they can to seize the moment.
Well, and you're right. And that's why it gets, there's those gray areas of if you're shooting something like Avatar is a perfect example, right? So
like the Blue People?
The Blue People Avatar.
Okay, gotcha.
So James Cameron
a great movie.
Pocahontas with Blue People.
Fantastic movie.
But James Cameron had discussed that was like his opus, right?
Right.
He had been planning on doing that film and writing that film for 10 to 12 years. But the whole reason why he didn't do it, I think when it came out, 2009, something like that. The reason why he didn't do that 10 to 12 years beforehand was because he knew technology wasn't there yet to create the Blue People in this world of Pandora that he wanted to create. So he had to wait for technology to catch up with his idea and then release it like that. But James Cameron's also an example of somebody who takes his time on films. We already know there's going to be 4 Avatar films. James Cameron announced this very soon after the first Avatar was released. Well, we haven't seen a second Avatar film yet because he's still working on it.
Wow.
They're still fine-tuning it.
So he pretty much said, I'm at the stage now. I'm going to spend the rest of my life developing this trilogy that I've been thinking about since I was a kid.
Well, when you make Titanic, you're allowed to do that.
That's another one though. So James Cameron is just someone who he puts out epic movie. When he puts a movie out, it's beyond all the other movies.
So James Cameron so you had mentioned earlier when we were having a discussion about film and movies, you were discussing earlier about how cool it would be to have somebody who did it all mathematical, right?
Yes, only used algorithms, didn't care about his passion, didn't care about the art. He just used science to make the perfect movie.
Okay, so I would argue that James Cameron might be the closest you have to that.
And he's the guy who made Titanic?
He's the guy who made Titanic.
Okay, I would agree then. Yes, he's epic.
Maybe not so much to the process of like actually making the film, but as far as coming up with an idea that sells. So when he did Titanic, for example, he I can't remember who distributed and produced, what studio distributed and produced Titanic, but I think it was Paramount. But when he was, let's just say it's Paramount. When he was sitting in this room with studio execs for Paramount, and he had to pitch this film, he had to pitch Titanic and get them to sell it. And this is literally, and I had no clue that this was the story of Titanic until it was said in such simple terms like this. And then it was like a ding, ding, ding. And he goes, okay, this is my idea. Romeo and Juliet on the Titanic. That was it. And that's what the movie is. It's Romeo and Juliet to a T. But it just happens on a sinking ship. So he knows how to take... That's
hilarious.
Yeah, so he knows how to take two compelling stories and put them together to create one grandioso story, which in this case was the movie Titanic.
Now, did he have anything to do with the choosing of cast?
Yes.
And the scenery and stuff? Okay. So I would say overall, over-encompassing, like that's one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. It's definitely in the top 10 of over-encompassing. They chose the perfect actors for the perfect roles. They made the scenes relatable. The sounds were amazing. The whole package as an entire completed package is one of the greatest.
I would probably put Titanic in my top 3.
I agree. It's fucking phenomenal. So are pretty much all of his movies toppers? Are they all movies that just kick ass?
Yes. Well, he was the one who started the Terminator franchise, right?
Fuck. Yeah, that one.
So
did really well.
he also did the second Alien movie, which in that whole franchise is revered as like the best Alien movie of all of them.
Okay.
So that's what launched his career. He did Avatar. He did. He's done a lot that I'm like spacing out on.
So
now,
as you're saying these names, though, I feel like any of those movies, if they hadn't been put out yet, if they released tomorrow, brand new, I feel like any of those names would still do well tomorrow.
Yes.
Even if they came out looking exactly the same as they do now, and kind of aged, you know what I mean? They don't even have to change the technology. If he just re-put them out and they were brand new, they would all be hits.
I think so.
For the most, maybe not the Alien one, but everything else would pretty much be a hit.
Yeah, they would end up just falling into like a niche at that point, right?
I think Alien was a product of its time. That's why it did so well. I think now that particular story just wouldn't do as well.
Yeah, I agree. The first Alien movie was basically the first horror movie where the monster was an alien. You know?
Yeah, we're kind of over that now.
Yeah. But yeah, the stuff with like Terminator and stuff, and then like I said,
I think all
Titanic.
of those could come out now and still be successful.
Yeah.
So his work is kind of timeless.
Yes, 100%.
I think that's something special. You don't get that very often.
No, not at all.
That's almost like a prodigy, dude.
Yeah, and that's why I always get bothered by the directors. Like, I understand, just like any industry, there are just some people who just look at it as it's their job, right? So some of these, Hollywood movies that come out that, go by the wayside, they're just some stupid little action drama or whatever it is, and then you'll never hear about them again, right? Regardless if they're A-listers or not. And, there's a certain level of respect for those directors out there who do those kind of films. But at the same time, it's like, as an artist, as a filmmaker, I feel like you should aim for all of your films to be timeless like that.
Right.
Well,
I feel like actors do that. That's definitely what actors do. Particularly ones like the great, like Tom Hanks, Leonardo DiCaprio, Robin Williams. There's many actors out there who they're timeless. Every single time that they play a role in any movie, even their biggest flop is the greatest hit of most other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They are just amazing in every role they play. And I feel like it's because it's more their portfolio.
Yeah.
Like, it really, they're the ones that get judged for it. Like, in the actual industry, the director gets judged for the film. Okay, so if you're trying to stay in the industry and stay relevant in your job, it's the director who gets all the blame or all the grace for the movie.
For the most part, yeah.
But with the fans, with actual people who go to the movies and watch them, and the ones who pay the money, it's the actors. If the movie sucks, we blame the actors for it.
Yes.
Because a lot of us don't really know a whole lot about directors for the most part. We just don't. So that's why I feel like the actors try harder than the directors do at face value, at least, to try to put on a good performance.
Well, yeah, and the actors, so I think the reason why you get that with the actors too is because there's a sense of elitism, especially amongst actors in Hollywood. And I think in one of our earlier podcasts when I was talking about when I was on set for Oz the Great and Powerful, remember I told you that story where James Franco did something that was like chuckle worthy, but everybody on set just started cracking up like the king had just made a joke, you know?
Right.
And I think you get those kind of things because of just what you said. You know, they're at the forefront of the film. Everybody understands that if they're not happy, then they're not getting a good performance. Then you're not gonna, your film's not gonna sell. But that's what's wrong.
But just like
with
anyone,
though.
you can spoil those people, just like a kid.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
There's a difference between keeping them happy and just spoiling the shit out of them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, come on.
And I think too much. It happens where they're spoiled. You know, they're always spoiled. It's like, okay, make him happy. An interesting example of that is Jim Carrey. So I saw a documentary, and I think I talked to you about this a little bit, but there was a documentary where Jim Carrey was playing a real person. Like, it was biopic, so he was playing
Yes, you've told me this
Andy
story.
Kaufman, the comedian who died. And it was called Man on the Moon. And they made a whole documentary where they interviewed Jim Carrey today about him playing that role years ago, where he, you know, quote unquote, the spirit of Andy Kaufman possessed him, and he acted as Andy Kaufman the entire time on set.
He got very, very into the role.
Right. So to the point of just annoying the fuck out of everybody, right?
Yes. He would make people call him Andy. He would he wouldn't, if you tried to say Jim, if you called him Jim, he wouldn't answer you. Yeah, you had to call him Andy.
He would go. Yeah, he would even say to them, he'd shake their hand and be like, "Oh my," he'd go, "No, my name's." They go, "Hey, nice to meet you, Jimmy." He'd be shaking hands with them, and he'd like keep holding their hands so they couldn't pull away. And he goes, "Andy."
My name's Andy.
Okay, and they go, "No, Andy." Like I mean, I hear Jim's a great guy. I'll let him know that you like, and just
all the time, nonstop.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but here's the difference. So there are two different kinds of people here. You have people like my brother, for instance, who watched that documentary and was like, you know, my brother who's really into acting and really into the different acting techniques out there, who watched them and was like, wow, how cool, getting so immersed into a role and, you know, trying to create this magic and trying to create this awesome character. But then you have people like me who's like, this guy's a fucking asshole.
Right.
Like, what a fucking asshole.
Well, because you've actually, I feel like you have a side of the story that most of us don't get. Because you've actually worked on stage in these settings of everywhere from an independent film all the way up to a film that grossed millions of dollars.
Right.
You didn't make millions of dollars, obviously.
Right,
you were a very, very small little speck in it. But you were still a part of the whole thing. You saw a lot of behind the scenes of it.
Yeah.
So I feel like you have a better understanding of these are just dudes in their 30s and 40s. They're not super far away. Like, they could be our older brother. And they're not that much greater than us. They're just people.
Yeah, that was...
And you're like, fuck you. Just act like a person.
That was actually one of the most shocking things. So it's...
A lot of them are goofy as fuck, too. There's goofy people.
Very goofy. And it's very different when you're watching one of these A-list actors give a performance in real life compared to when you actually see the final product.
Well, because they're not a theater actor, bro. It takes 100 other professionals around this person to make them look like a genius.
Exactly. So I remember there was a scene when I did Oz the Great and Powerful where, so as a stand-in, as a double, if there's a part where like they need, so just to set it up. So James Franco as Oz was giving a speech to the people of Oz, right? So you had
Right.
so you had this little mountain and you had all these extras, all in costume and everything.
Okay.
And the whole purpose of this shot was just to get reaction shots of all the extras.
Okay.
So when they're doing reaction shots of all the extras, well, there's no reason for Franco to be up there giving the speech.
No, you just need the voice.
Just need the voice. So they would put me up there. They made me memorize this speech. And then I would give this speech out to the extras so that the extras had something to react to. So when you're
Right,
watching
yeah,
the movie and
yeah.
you're seeing them react to Franco talking, they're actually reacting
They're
to me
actually
talking.
reacting to
Yeah.
Adam Hansen talking.
But the thing is, yeah.
That's kind of cool.
It is kind of cool.
There's going to be like 13 people who know that now.
Yeah. So, but anyways, so now after I did my thing, I got down from it, and then they wanted to shoot Franco doing the actual scene, so he got up, gave the speech. And I had extras who were coming up to me, multiple people, who were telling me that they thought I did the lines better than James Franco, right? And very flattering. I very much appreciate it. But the first thing that came to my mind is James Franco is an A-list actor. There is no fucking reason that a stand-in should be reading these lines better than him. Like,
Right.
So and I don't put myself on a pedestal as a great actor by any means. It's not something I necessarily enjoy doing. So what that told me was, is Franco really a good actor, or did he just find his way into this business and now he's stuck in it? You know what I mean?
So I feel that a lot of actors,
Uh-huh.
similar to those along the lines of James Franco, okay, it's not that they are A-list acting ability. It's they are A-listers in bringing in numbers.
Yes.
So James Franco is extraordinarily popular. He's someone who just the way he delivers things,
Right.
and when you see him on stage, is just very flattering to watch. He's relatable. I don't know, something about that person brings in a lot of tickets, people who
Right.
buy tickets, which makes him numerically an A-lister.
Right.
But are there not 10 other actors in the industry who you could put in the same role and they could act it better?
Right.
Yes, there are. But would they get the same numbers that Franco gets? We'll never know. But the bet was no, they won't.
Right.
So they went with Franco.
Well, and I know that now, but like those were just one of the
I don't think
things
he's one
that
of the
kind
greatest
of
actors at all.
opened, and I don't
He's
either.
definitely not even in the top 10.
But that's what bothered me when I was on set. I'm like what the fuck does this say about the movie that you guys hired a fucking stand-in that people thought could read the lines better than your A-lister? You know, just that shit just bothers
It's like
me.
who's the other one who's all about? Oh, I'm gonna get some blasts for this saying this on the internet. But the one who did Pineapple Express, is it Seth Rogen?
Oh, Seth Rogen, yeah.
Okay, again, I put him in the same boat as Franco.
Yeah.
Love his movies, I really do. I enjoy all of the movies of his that I watch.
Right.
But do I watch them because I love him as an actor? No.
Right.
It's more of, if anything, the directors in those movies are what I would watch it for, knowing what a director does now. I like the way they're set up. I like the humor behind them. I think
Right.
they're great. Could they have found a better dude than Seth Rogen? Probably 25 times.
So here's my opinion about Seth Rogen.
He's just not an actor.
So I agree with you. I agree
I
with
have a
you.
hard time. I'm sorry, guys.
So I 100% agree with you. What bothers me, actually, is that because I think Franco should be in the same category as Rogen.
I agree.
And what they do is they try to bump up Franco into some other level of acting where I think he's supposed to be down where Rogen is.
I
Because
agree.
Rogen is
Which is still very successful.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, and Rogen is somebody where, just as you said, it's not, and we talked about this earlier too, it's not that he's the best actor, but there are specific roles
Anything that's stoner-esque.
that were made. Well, I would even argue no. He did a film, they did a film about Steve Jobs that Michael Fassbender played Steve Jobs, and then Seth Rogen played the right-hand man to Steve Jobs before he left Apple,
Yes.
right? And he did a great job in that
It's
role.
not the Ashton Kutcher Steve Jobs
No,
movie.
no.
It's the other Steve Jobs movie.
He played, what's the guy's name? Steve Wozniak or something like that?
Whatever, yes, you're right.
But so he played that role, and I saw that movie, and I thought Seth Rogen did a really good job portraying that character.
Really? Like not being a stoner for once?
Like not being a stoner. He did a very good job portraying that character. However, though, that was one of those of like Seth Rogen could do that role, and he was great for that role, but you wouldn't put Seth Rogen in some dramatic, he has to cry for 2 hours kind of scene. He's not a versatile actor.
Let me just, because I'm not really in with the times. Okay, I don't keep up with a lot of this. The guy who I really like from Wolf of Wall Street, the fatter dude.
Oh, Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill. So is he in the same category as Franco and Seth Rogen?
He's actually opposite. So whereas Franco is like put up on a more pedestal where I think he should be down where Rogen is.
Where's Jonah Hill?
I think Jonah Hill is down where Rogen is and should be up where Franco is.
So as far as an actor goes, Jonah Hill is a fantastic fucking actor.
I agree.
He might be a goofball. He might get goofy fucking roles.
But he can play any role.
But that dude can do anything. He can be an asshole. He can be hilarious. He can be a lover.
He can be dramatic.
He is fucking great at acting. And I feel like he's not put up where he should be.
Yes. I agree.
Okay, so I'm not crazy.
You're not crazy.
Okay.
So
dude,
I would put Jonah Hill above James Franco.
What was the one he played? War Dogs or whatever?
War Dogs, yeah.
Dude, he was phenomenal in War Dogs.
Yes.
So good.
Absolutely.
Wolf of Wall Street, he made that movie hilarious. He's great.
And that's my perfect example. You have somebody who I feel like truly values the craft of acting, like Jonah Hill, and then you have these parts that you're throwing James Franco in, where it's like, I don't know. It's like I feel like he never tries in his fucking movies.
You know the movie Juno?
Yes.
Who's the little skinny white boy plays in that? He's in a lot of stuff.
Michael Cera.
Okay, Michael Cera. Again, so that's one. Okay, I'm going to tell you my opinion, then you tell me yours.
Okay.
I think he's put up way too high.
Yes.
For what he is. I don't think he's that phenomenal of an actor.
No.
I think he found a role he's really good at, and he's played that role like 6 times now.
But to be fair though, I don't think anybody, even in Hollywood, looks at Michael Cera and says a great actor. I think just as you said,
his movies do really well though. He's in very good movies.
But that's just it. He's really good at playing one particular character. So anytime somebody writes a movie and they have a character like that,
I feel like he's regarded above Jonah Hill though. People can say he's been in more things than Jonah Hill's been in.
Oh no, I don't think so.
No?
No. I mean, Jonah Hill's been nominated for an Oscar. Michael Cera hasn't been nominated for shit.
No, because he never will be. He's not that great.
No. I don't think Michael Cera is even in that league, nor do I think anybody considers him in that league, nor do I think Michael Cera considers himself in that league. But there are people...
Okay, maybe I just thought it was a little highlier regarded than he really is.
No, because
he was pretty highly regarded.
Because I think if you go back and watch any of his movies, it's very obvious to everybody that, oh, you're just playing Michael Cera.
You just
know
that
what
role
I mean?
again.
Yeah. But I don't know, maybe...
It's interesting. I don't know. I guess what really makes you successful is how much money you bring in.
Yeah.
But what makes you a good actor, man, is being good at acting. At the end of the day, that's what it is.
Well, and that's the only point I'm trying to get across. There are actors out there who I feel like you put them in any role, no matter what the role is, anywhere on the spectrum, and they cannot...
They're going to nail it.
They're going to nail it. They're going to knock it out of the park. And I think there are actors out there that can't do that, and I don't think...
Sean Connery was a really good actor.
Yeah, Sean Connery's a good actor.
He did play a lot of similar roles over and over, but I do think you put him in anything and he would have knocked it out of the park.
But that's really my point. It's like instead of putting these actors that can't do that and putting them on so high on a pedestal, it's like we've talked about it before, just in life in general. Know what you're good at and stick with it and embrace that. But don't sit here and try to do all these fucking movies and look how versatile I am. You're not versatile just because people put you in the role. You know?
Right.
So, I don't know. I have a lot of opinions about film.
And I mean, at the end of the day, they're where they are.
Yeah.
You know, and where we are. So they did something right.
Yeah.
sometimes I feel that we all need to take a step back and remember that we're just watching people who are putting on an entertainment story for 2 hours.
Yes.
They're not saving any lives. They're not creating anything to advance society. They're entertaining. And they're not geniuses, people. They are just phenomenal entertainers.
Sometimes you just gotta, some of these movies that come out, you just gotta take at face value, you know.
Except Adam and I, we're geniuses.
Well,
Genii.
Yeah, genii. Don't forget that, guys. So we're over time today.
Oh no!
And it's funny. I think we talked about a few articles, and then it just ended up becoming about film for 40 minutes. So I hope you guys enjoyed that.
Knew?
Who would have not? Who would have not? Who would have thought? There we go. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. And we always appreciate our listeners. We hope you enjoyed this one in regards to virtual reality and then, film for 40 minutes. But remember, you can find us on all the social media platforms. We do have an update coming out for you guys soon. I promise it's coming soon. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. Any final thoughts, Matthew?
I just want everyone to remember that I am extraordinarily handsome, but you all are beautiful. So thank you. Thank you for being beautiful.
That was beautiful, Matthew. Thank you.
See you tomorrow, guys.
See you guys. Bye-bye.